What makes the city so valuable for manufacturers and companies coming in is the partnerships with the universities and the manufacturers and the engineering community at large, and how Pittsburgh as a whole brings itself together to kind of solve hard problems. The capabilities that we could provide to people is just, second to none.
What does the world of industrial distribution have to do with robotics? We're going to sit down with Jeff Lamouree of the Industrial Solutions Network to find out. Jeff, what's the best ride at Kennywood? Let's start there.
Best ride at Kennywood?
Best ride at Kennywood.
Oh man, I would say it has to be the Jackrabbit.
Really? You're going classic?
Classic Jackrabbit all the way.
Okay. It's got that double dip.
Right, there's nothing like it.
I kind of like the Thunderbolt, where it just rams you into whoever you're on that ride with, because they're like these coasters were built in like the 1920s, and there's just no banking of the turns back then.
Right, they're awesome.
So have you ridden that new steel curtain one that they built that just keeps breaking down?
I have. It hasn't been running for a while, so it's been tough to get on.
They're making some fixes. I think it's good to go this season. Like, it's just going to be perfect.
I'm hoping it's an awesome ride.
You'll appreciate this as a Pitt graduate. I rode it in 2021, and I happened to be at Kennywood the same day the entire Pittsburgh football team was there, University of Pittsburgh football team. They all rode it right before I did and broke it down for 5 minutes. They had to
too big.
They had to when you have a full train of overly sized humans on a roller coaster, you're just not. It's probably not going to work the way it's supposed to.
I can see that.
So, great spot. Good warm up question. My real question for you to start this conversation is Jeff, what does a distributor have to do with robotics? That I feel like is a real good place to start. That would probably be a lot of people's first question.
Yeah, so as the distributor, we're trying to provide solutions to our customers. So, we're not just giving you the commodities and the wire products and your outlets and things like that. We are trying to bring whole solutions to customers. So whether it be robotics or anything else, we're really looking at the whole picture so that we can be a resource for these customers to help them figure out their needs and their manufacturing capabilities.
And I know I referred to Mosebach and the Industrial Solutions Network as a distributor, but as you pointed out, the way I've really started to change the way I describe folks like yourself as value-added reseller, right? Because distributor doesn't really quite encompass all the things that you were just mentioning in terms of a whole solution in that case.
Sure.
We're going to get into that a little bit more here in a second, but let's get into your personal story a little bit. How did you get into robotics and mechatronics? As you say, your title is Motion and Robotics Solution Consultant rather than mechatronics, because that's kind of a general term we hear sometimes. But let's hear your story and how it's evolved a bit.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of funny. I always wanted to be an architect, and then I wanted to design factories for things. That's what interests me. I wanted to build a big factory.
It's very Pittsburgh of you.
Yes, I think so. But that's honestly what I want to do. I want to be an architect, and I want to design and build factories. And I realized that I could have a bit more fun if I'm designing and building machines. So I designed and built machines for 12 years. And now I just think it's such a fun, natural, the way the world is moving right now, it's just, it's all around us, and it's a really exciting time in robotics. So, I'm really happy to be a part of it, and being able to just help people in the area trying to do this type of work is, I think, incredibly rewarding.
Out of curiosity, did you get an architecture degree?
I did not.
After that? Okay. I wasn't sure how far down the path. I mean, I'm an engineer and I'm a podcaster now,
sure.
So I've obviously pivoted quite a bit.
Yeah,
well.
I realized that I had to go to school for way too long, so I just went the engineering route.
Okay. I mean, nothing wrong with an engineering degree. I will never be disappointed that I have an engineering degree now.
Right.
I also kind of think your story is a little bit of a parable for Pittsburgh a bit, right? You grew up, you wanted to build factories, and now you're focused on robotics, which is hey, one represents kind of what Pittsburgh, a lot of people's vision of what Pittsburgh was and is, but really this is a town that's getting things out of the lab and into the real world now. So I think the way your story kind of follows that trajectory as well is very cool. But I'd like to ask that question now. In the work that you do, how do you see Pittsburgh as a place that's helping get technology that was at the universities or in the labs actually getting out to the field and going into real world applications? How do you see that playing out on a regular basis?
Yeah, so Pittsburgh has a really strong engineering community. And in that, I think a lot of the companies in this area look for the universities and things to drive innovation across the industry. And the way the kind of the universities are doing that is they're partnering with Arm Institute and places like this and manufacturers to help kind of fill in the gaps of where there's engineering resources at these companies. Now these universities and places like the Arm Institute are filling in the gaps to where there might be a knowledge gap in the expertise on how to do these type of robotic systems. And the community itself is kind of banding together to drive this innovation, whether it be workforce issues or anything like that. It's really the community that's driving this innovation.
Yeah. So it's and I've heard someone who's Joel Reed from Premier Labs describe like Pittsburgh's number one raw resource right now, the raw material that's so valuable to Pittsburgh is the engineering talent.
Absolutely. I think that's why you see the coined Pittsburgh Robotics Row and things like that is the concentration of the specialty in robotics and AI and technology, particularly in this area, is just the depth of the talent here is, rare to find in the world, really.
Well, I like that you described that talent is now starting to fill in the gaps, right, between what would take place at Pitt or Carnegie Mellon University and then what's taking place out in the field. I think that's part of what it's like being in a place like Pittsburgh that I know is not the Midwest, but has I feel like some of that Midwest hardworking mentality.
Absolutely. I think, the days of Steel City are still, we still are very traditional in that and still very proud of that.
Pragmatic is the word I use a lot of times, right? You're we got to get the work done.
Right, and I think that is, Pittsburgh is a very much blue-collar city, and we're proud of our manufacturing base and where we came from. And I think that this community in general, whether it be the universities or the manufacturing companies, understand the importance of a strong manufacturing base and how these universities can help drive that across the country.
Can we make a claim here on air that Pittsburgh might be the most high-tech blue-collar town in the world? I feel like that might be...
I think that's safe to say.
Yeah, it's a little hyperbole, but I don't think we're too far off.
No, I think if you look at even historically of what has come out of this region, I don't think that'd be a stretch at all to say.
Yeah. No, we'll see if that sticks. If anything, it's something nice we said during this conversation.
Give it 5-10 years. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, we're doing that. We're having this conversation here at the Arm Institute right now in the old Mill 19. Why do you care as a distributor, as a value-added reseller, about the Arm Institute?
Sure. So the Arm Institute allows our customers to prove out applications that maybe they have no experience in doing or very little experience in doing. We could bring a customer to here, a manufacturer, to a place like the Arm Institute, go through their application with them, prove it out on a system without them needing to buy hardware or make significant capital investments. They can come here, prove it out on the robots that are in this facility. We can de-risk the project, so whenever they do go to the point where they want to implement it, they already know that the projects will work. There's no guessing of, what if this doesn't work? We've already proved it out for them. And then we're already proving the payback period for it. So we know that they'll get their return on investment and they don't need to worry about a large hit on their capital budget for if something goes wrong, because we've already proved it out for them.
So you're also able to use this place for exactly what it's for. Like you just said, de-risking projects. And as you mentioned at the start, it's not just about selling pipe and wire and a controller off the shelf anymore. It's about looking at that holistic solution.
Yes.
This is a spot that allows you to look at that in entire automation solution.
Absolutely. And anything in automation, nothing works on its own. There's always integrated and connected components within them. This allows us to use the end-of-arm tools that you'd actually use and the actual robots that you would use and combine it into an actual solution that will get the job done that you're looking to get done.
Yeah. Can you share, specific or general, like an example of how you've seen this play out in the field?
Sure. So we've had some customers where very manual processes, dangerous jobs, dirty jobs used at a foundry. And essentially we were taking a position that was incredibly dangerous, had high injury rates and high turnovers for employees, basically couldn't pay someone enough to do this job.
Yeah.
We were going to implement a robotic system. This system allowed them to run 24/7, 7 days a week. They were able to remove the operator away from the dangerous area, and it allowed them to increase their productivity while also nearly doubling their quality factor.
Yeah.
So in doing this robot, they added the quality because of the robot. So the person that was doing the job is now the quality inspector.
I was going to ask you, specifically, hey, what did that person start doing afterwards? It's always interesting to hear a great, very specific example of, because we always say, right, robots don't replace jobs. But when you hear that enough, someone might start to wonder, is that really true? But when you say, hey, we took an operator out of a dull, dirty, dangerous job, and now, because the robot was helping them increase quality, he's now the quality leader for that operation, that is a perfect example of what automation allows people to do with the type of roles that are in their facility. And quite frankly, I got to think that's a much better job. Probably looks like a promotion, too, if I had to take a wild guess. So love that specific example. Where do you see manufacturers going that have adopted robotic systems, particularly small and medium size? We know robots are in these large facilities. Where do you see manufacturing going with the smaller folks that are adopting?
So I think with the small and medium manufacturers, the real benefit and key to them is that it allows them to kind of, I almost want to say artificially scale their operation.
Okay.
It kind of allows them to be
micro scaling.
Yes. So it allows them to be more productive and be able to produce more without necessarily significantly growing in size. Right?
Sure.
So it allows them to keep costs down, run more productively, and basically make better products.
Yeah.
And we see it all the time. Sometimes it's reducing the injuries from people, is a big driver of robotics. And also just, now you can run 24/7 operation.
Yeah.
There's many benefits to implementing robotic systems, whether it's just from a safety standpoint or just the ability to produce more product.
One thing I'm interested to get your take on as well. What are some of the trends you're seeing taking place right now? Are you seeing, is it cobot adoption? Is it companies that have adopted one robot that are getting, 2 more now? Or is it companies that are going from 0 to 1? What's kind of the things you're seeing?
Yeah, the adoption is definitely picking up at a fast pace. I see labor shortages is driving most of that, but I also think quality and production rates are driving that. But what I'm seeing is connecting traditional islands of automation and with AMRs and mobile robot technology combined with your traditional robot systems, so you have more of an integrated facility where machines are tending other machines, robots are tending a system, and therefore basically kind of creating this lights out, reducing the islands of automation and getting them all connected into a seamless facility to where all the machines are talking to each other and everything's intertwined.
Yeah. What is one of the things you expect to see next in this space if you're looking in your crystal ball?
I think the big horizon is going to be the autonomous mobile robots.
Okay.
There's a lot of facilities with forklifts driving around, run by people, and forklifts have accidents and knock into shelving racks and knock them over. So I think the the next thing we're going to probably most likely see is a lot of autonomous mobile robots replacing the things from traditional operations of person to person or machine to machine, where you'd have a person bring that material through. I believe most of that will be replaced by a mobile robot in the near future.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you say autonomous mobile robots, because I completely agree, because if I think back to 5 years ago, people were just kind of starting to adopt them, right? But they're proven now. Like,
Yes.
when I talk to folks, I say, look, a lot of the risk associated with autonomous mobile robots has been de-risked at this point. It's proven out there. There's no reason to hesitate on adopting those today.
Yeah, and I'd say that's generally true for most robots now.
But cobots.
I would think, the days of robots being this far foreign, magical system, people have come a long way and made them so much easier to use now that really anyone could pick up a robot and get it going in probably half an hour. Yeah, I could probably sit down with a college student or a high school student and teach them how to get it going. The technology has allowed these systems to be able to be implemented in far more various applications and do it much simpler.